there's tons of changes in 2025 to the game and the league. But will it be enough to have anyone else but G2 lift the trophy this year? Please, I mean, I beg you teams, just somebody else win. Oh, well, not to worry either way, because the Chosen One has finally joined the competition. This is not a drill. Kalist is here. Time will tell if he'll have a rookie debut like Elyoya or more like the Fish Show. On the upside, if you can't hack it on the Rift, you can always make it as an analyst, and we are introducing a brand new one today. Coming up, we'll be discussing our favorite 2025 gameplay changes and giving you our spiciest takes about the new rosters in a revamped Ready Check. Let's do it. Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Riot Games Arena in Berlin, Germany for the 2025 season of the LEC. My name is Shax, and I'm joined by Goldborg and by a brand new analyst, as I already teased in the teaser, I guess. It's Jack Spectra.
Hello.
Welcome.
Very glad to be here, very excited.
What led you to the desk?
Well, I mean, I've always been very passionate about League. Been a former pro player, played for Heretics, and you guys probably saw me in actually it's 2023,
yeah.
2025, wow. And yeah, just love talking about League, love playing it, and feels great to be here.
Yeah, it's been awesome. We've, of course, been rehearsing with Jack a little bit before, and you are very impassioned the way you speak about this new season, and I think that's what we want to do. I also want to let our viewers know that we're trying something new with Ready Check. We're going to just talk about a couple of topics and let it free flow, rather. See where we go. If you have anything you'd like us to talk about, hit us up on any social media platform of your desires, or at LEC on X is probably the easiest. So I want to start maybe by 2025 season, the game specifically. Noxus is here. I personally think that that is awesome. The fact that it is split up in these themes, Noxus being the first, I think that's a really cool vessel for all the changes. But I'm sure that you want to nerd out about some of the changes in particular.
Yeah, I mean, there's both the fun aspect of the game. I kind of like it's fresh. You know, I was one of the people who always wanted the Christmas maps to come back. Now I'm getting Noxus. I feel like we can get Christmas this year as well. But I think it's nice that we're getting a game that keeps evolving and we get new things. Sometimes things are gonna hit and sometimes things are gonna miss the mark as well. But I think as we gradually get into it, my main takeaway has still been I'm excited for what we've seen so far.
I hear a lot of, like in Euphoria, Freddy was saying like, oh, overwhelmed. There's always something going on. But wouldn't that be what you want specifically for pro play?
I always felt like that. When we hit like preseason, I always felt like it was overwhelming in the beginning. And I think it has to be as well. And I think once you have like a month where you've played the game, you immediately go back into your old habits. Because to me, the game is still the same, right? It's still the same win conditions. You still have to kill the enemy nexus. It's still majorly the same macro decisions. So yeah.
Yeah, I want to touch on that. I think for us that are playing it on the live server, it might feel quite overwhelming, but the pro players actually had access to this, a little bit of a different version, but they had access to it in like early December. So these pro players are a lot more familiar with the changes than we are. So I think for them, and for me now, after having played like 100 games-ish on the new patch, not actually that much has changed. It's more visual than anything. There's not much item changes. There's not much champion changes. So I don't want to say I was underwhelmed by the changes, but the game is still very different, very similar. I think we're going to see quite similar macro, we're going to see quite similar plays, and we're going to see a lot of lane swaps.
Okay. Oh, no. You didn't just say that. I think you prepared a little presentation about the patch. You just want to run us through that for people who are not in the know?
So, we are entering the season 25, S25.1.1, just rolls right off the tongue.
Super easy.
And with it comes a new epic monster, Atakan, with 2 different forms. One that you've probably seen a lot in your solo queue games, Ruinous Atakan, and one that you'll probably be seeing in nearly every game today, the Voracious Atakan, which has an incredibly overpowered GA buff that when you die, you're sent straight back to spawn and you only award 100 gold to the enemy team. Practically just a cannon minion. Now, this buff spawns at, or this monster rather, spawns at 20 minutes and can be alive at the same time as Baron Nashor. So we're probably going to see some quite strange macro around this objective, and it might cause some teams to either choose to cross-map it or play for it.
But Jack, where does the Atakan spawn?
So it spawns based on where there's most kills and most damage, which will be either top or bot side of the map. I would predict that probably a lot of cases it'll spawn on top side, because if you have a hard bot matchup, that would normally be a fist fight. You'll just swap, so then it would be on top side because you're like diving top lane and all that. But we'll see. And then we also have the Feats of Strength, which is a brand new mechanic that gives you upgraded boots. You need 2 out of 3 objectives, and then you get the Triumphant boot upgrades. And with that, you have the option to buy tier 3 boot upgrades for 750 gold. And some of these are really, really strong, like the Swiftness boots, while my gunmetal greaves are pretty damn useless, unfortunately. And with that, there are some few champion changes. So 3 main ADCs got changed, and I think they'll be really prevalent in today's games, and that is Ashe, Kalista, and Varus. I think we'll be seeing these champions a lot. Mostly their early game got slightly tuned down, but their late game scaling got buffed to compensate for it. But I also want to touch on a different category of champions, and that is mages. I believe that mages are incredibly OP, and that it is quite strange that we are currently not seeing them much in pro play. I think all ADCs should play mages bot, and we should see AD mids. But I understand why they're not playing them, because all of our pro players are pretty damn stubborn, and can you blame them? I wouldn't touch any of these champions with a 10-foot pole.
Oh my gosh.
I love that, Jack. Well done.
Okay, then tell me this, because I mean, you having been in the pro environment, right? Oftentimes when we get new patches and we get these possibilities, like you say, oh, these mages are super OP, and then we get into the first week and it is the most boring champions that are picked, ones that were actually viable last year it would be at this point. Why is that? If they've had access to the patch for so long, isn't that like a free win and a best of 1?
I mean,
well, you want me to answer?
No, go ahead.
Okay, I mean, part of it is that people underestimate how OP it is to be really, really good on champion. Like, a really, really good Kalista player will always beat a decent mage player, even if the mage is like a more OP champion. But the other thing is, like, for example, if you want to play mages, the problem is that it's not just about playing a mage bot. Your mid laner now needs to play AD champs. And if he then only plays Yone, okay, they banned Yone, GG, can't play mages anymore. We go back to normal ADCs, and now we've practiced normal ADCs for 20 scrims. GG.
Yeah, but I also think like the further you get into the tournament, because there will be feelers at one point, of course, I think that's where it starts mattering. Yeah. And specifically with the kind of players that you have in our region as well, right? Is Meowin he's gonna start taking away AD carries from the AD carry pool in a tier list. You might have a game where from one game, 3 AD carries has now been out of the pool, right? Then suddenly that pool starts getting trimmed even further. If you're in a position where you ban away the few viable AD carries, you have the mages available to you. I mean, FLICKR used to play so much Seraphine, right? We had some 6 in the past as well. I think it's a matter of time before someone decides to play these. And my hot take with mages is that if there was a Persk-esque player who was a mid laner that role swapped to bot lane, they would have brought mages in.
Is that what you have to be? You have to be like a Perks who won an international tournament with a weird configuration in his team and has AD carry experience, and then you can play mages that, like, come on, is it that hard?
The fact that he was so good on mages that he showed, if you had, like, I think it's just that if you had a mid laner play bot lane right now, they would stomp most ADCs because they could just play mages and they could play them to like a 10 out of 10 level. But if an ADC first time's a mage, he's going to play like a 6 out of 10 and he's going to be kind of useless.
But we're not talking about first timing, right? You say about
first timing, but
what if there's one pocket pick? Like, that's more what I'm getting at. If you know it in December, right, and you've worked on the patch, that what if there's one pocket pick that you've then worked on for so long? But I get it. Those are not maybe realistic scenarios in preparing. You have enough to do preparing for your first LEC split than that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends what team you're on, right? If you're a team where most of the things stayed the same, but even G2 changed quite a bit, right? If you're on a team where most of the things stayed the same, you don't have to think about what kind of system are we implementing with this new team that we're getting, what kind of team do we want to be. You can think about champions then. But if you are a team who's brought in players and you need synergy, well, that's where you can't really focus on these things.
It's true. And the regular season in winter is very short. It's also the last time we're going to see best of ones for these 3 weeks. So to kind of set us up for what has changed and what has stayed the same, let's take a look at this format explainer.
This is your super quick LEC 2025 Winter Format Explainer. In 2025, the Winter Split remains really similar to the previous format, except for the introduction of Fearless Draft. That's right, all matches during Winter Playoffs will be using Fearless Draft. First up, we'll have a 3-week single round robin featuring best-of-1 series. The top 8 teams will then progress to a double elimination playoff bracket consisting of both best-of-3 and best-of-5 series. The LEC Winter Split Final will then crown our first LEC champion of the year and see the winner go on to compete in the all-new international event. So, Winter, mostly the same, but Fearless, the first LEC title of the year, and a brand new international competition. Winter Split kicks off on January 18th. Got it?
Yeah, I got it. It's awesome. Single round robin, best of ones. Okay, listen, that's less awesome. I know, guys. This is
wow, I've never seen this before. This is so new.
Top 8 goes to our playoffs. It's kind of a scam. It's kind of like EU at Worlds. Recently, it's like you get sold all these cool things and then you arrive and it's just best of ones for 3 weeks.
Damn, friendly fire already.
But it's kind of making me nostalgic already for that we won't have that again. So I'm going to enjoy the best of ones. For a team, and a lot of teams that are newly configured, Jack, and the fact that they have the new meta to play with. What do you think about best of ones in this context?
I mean, I think best of ones, they're like fun as like a appetizer, you know? I think it works well for this format because you get to see a tiny sliver of what teams look like. And there's also like the stakes are so high because you only have one game. If you choke that one game, that's it. And it's only 9 games, and then you either go home or you continue. Of course, it's the top 8, but for a lot of these teams, I'd say like the bottom 4, and especially me, I played in this format. It was very similar when I played. It's a lot of pressure. Let's say you have a bad week 1. Oh my God, week 2 and 3 is feeling really, really scary right now. If we drop one more game, it's like...
I mean, you were in Heretics, of course. So.
It was a tough situation.
I think those are the teams where you are the most stressed as well, right?
Yeah.
If you spoke to people who, when we speak to pro players, what do you think of the format? Some love it, some are not too happy about it. Most of the time as well, the bottom ones are definitely one where they're feeling the most pressure. Because it's not just, oh, we can maybe cheese out a best of 1. They're always thinking of a perspective if they're losing, and I understand that it is a hard environment to be in. But at the end of the day, it's a competition, and it's the same for everyone else. So you gotta etch it out the same way.
It's true. You just gotta play with the tools that you have. In this case, a lot of tanks, maybe, perhaps. How do we feel about? I mean, what's the problem? Is there one?
There is a problem.
Okay.
The problem, in my opinion, is that nobody wants to play tanks. So they just have to buff it up to such an absurd level. Even now, in my solo queue games, there's not that many tanks. But everybody knows it's so OP. It makes no sense.
I mean, if you are asking me to queue up in a solo queue game, I'm not picking a tank myself.
Same.
I'm just not.
Are you building something else as a tank?
But here, the thing is as well, I am not the one getting paid for it. But I think as well, to your point, you don't have to find it exciting on boring tanks anymore because you can just do it on champions like Jace instead.
True.
And suddenly you can play a champion that isn't a tank. You can play it like a tank. And you know what's more fun than playing a tank? Playing a champion that's not designed to be a tank, like a tank. And then you get moments like this that should never happen, in my opinion, like Jace with the new build. I think for now, it's been very fun to watch. But I thought Udyr was fun to watch as well in the beginning until I saw him 10
Udyr was fun to watch? Okay.
The first times when I saw him, it was hype.
What do you mean, like in 2000, I don't know.
Like old Udyr,
The
not new
Flash
Udyr.
Bear son.
Yes.
Yeah.
New
Lord,
champions are hype. Jack, start talking about this Jace build instead.
I mean, this Jace build, essentially, a lot of it hinges on the fact that as Jace, you can play in range form, you do the auto attack, you swap to melee form, and then you get the melee grass proc. And the melee grass proc is still very strong, but as you guys may know, they nerfed the range grass proc because it was starting to be a problem. So in this way, Jace is still playing with melee procs while kind of being a range champion. And that way, he gets a ton of HP, he abuses the new Undying Despair, which is really OP, and he just kind of slowly whittles you down in this really weird iteration of Jace.
I was only reminded of this now. You know what other champions abuses grasp like this? Nidalee. Now, I'm not saying we're going to see a lot of tank Nidalee top, but if we're starting the year the way we left off, you know, you never know.
That's good. Maybe for Mirwin, of course.
But that's the thing with the LEC, you never know what to expect with some of these players. Well, we are getting things where they stay the same. We also have a few that kind of etches it out and then just throw something in there that you never expect.
I mean, we talked about some of the players. I feel like we need to really get into the rosters in this next bit before we get to our first game, which is later. I'm going to pull up Another iPad. Yeah. Double
Two
fisting
iPads,
iPads.
okay.
It's great.
She stayed here for long.
Because I just wanted to pull up all the rosters, basically, so we could kind of choose what to talk about. I also want to give a big shout out to Sheep Esports. They have a transfer hub tool, and it is amazing. We needed to make it fit for our template, but it's kind of the same. We obviously used it a lot to prepare for this week. Where shall I start? I don't want to make it too easy. Perhaps here. So Giant X, where we have Lotus coming out for D'Antonio, who, just like you, he just bowed out after not really winning that much. We have Closer, Jackie.
Welcome to the desk, buddy.
And then what I think is really cool is Noah and June. I'm confused. I had to double check when I saw
Daylight
this.
robbery to get this roster.
How are they on Giant X?
I mean, from what I've heard, Noah had a lot of mental issues on Fnatic, and overall, it was just a tough year for Fnatic, even though they were very successful. And it ended up in this weird environment where I think a lot of people underrated Noah, especially because people just look at the most important moments, and he choked those moments. He did. It happens. But as a player and as a bot lane, they were top 2, top 3 throughout the whole year. So the fact that Giants X got them was, for me, huge.
I think it's also the pressure that came with being on Fnatic, because everyone had the expectations that they were the team that had to take the G2 down, right?
Yeah.
So had that bot lane been on any other team, you would have been like, oh, they're so good in what they're doing and they're living up to the expectations. The problem was that in those moments where the expectations needed to be higher, for good reason as well, don't get me wrong, as you said, like there were some choked up moments. But I think GX roster in general is super good. It's an upgrade in bot lane. It's an upgrade in jungle. It's an upgrade in ADC. It's one of the rosters that's the most upgraded, at least for the value that they got.
Yeah, it's great value. I think when you look at these rosters often, and we saw some salaries, alleged salaries, I will say. Mid laners have it good, man. I don't know what to say.
Support is kind of like the same in game, low econ, in real life, low econ.
Yeah, good segue actually, because so who did Fnatic get? They got Upset, which is, I think, Upset and Mickey, when you look at it, that is amazing, right? But this is 2025, and I think that's where. How much are they going to show? Do they have a bit of a chip on their shoulder wanting to show? I think if I was Mickey, I for sure would want to, after having to leave that G2 roster again. It's like going back to your ex and then they kick you out again. I mean, but what is the most important thing about this roster? Because to me, right, this is a roster that had to win at least one final last year and has some of the biggest mental blocks that I have ever seen. And I feel like maybe if you think about that, that is where that change comes in.
Yeah, but I think Fnatic in general is also a team that lacks stability. And I think, okay, if I'm looking with nostalgia glasses on, at first I'm like, yeah, Mickey and Upset's really going to bring that stability. But if I'm looking with my realist glasses on, then I'm actually saying that Mickey had a bit of the disaster year last year. Yeah. Upset hasn't been on a top team in a very long time. This is his last chance to prove that he actually deserves to be at a top team coming back full circle. But I will say that I actually have high hopes for this roster. I think Razork and Mickey has the potential to be one of the best mid-jungle support duos that we have in the entire league.
I went to go ask some coaches and players and people that are playing about quotes, and they're going to stay anonymous. But this is one of the quotes that I got about Fnatic, which I'm going to double check because there's a lot of them. Fnatic is on fire, winning a lot. Oscar Rinnan is having a lot of fun, and Upset is deadly when he gets some resources. So this is Scrim info.
Yeah, I've also heard that they're doing very well, which I think is a very good sign. For me, this is a roster that really hinges on how they do in scrims. For me, I was a huge fan of Upset back in the day when he was on Origin and all that stuff, and I felt like he got really inted a lot throughout his career. But in the last year or so, I feel like he hasn't really shown very much. I feel like he was kind of playing the team fights incredibly safe, kind of just playing for KDA a little bit, and I really hope that on this roster now, where if they're having good results, I think for me that's a huge sign that they're going to do well.
But which bot lane is better? The one they let go or the one they have now?
We'll have to see. I was under the impression that Noah Jun was definitely better. I think last year they were definitely better, but scrims carry a lot of weight, and especially if Noah and Jun still have some mental issues, if they're then losing to Fnatic bot lane in scrims, then they just develop that idea that they're worse, and it shows on stage.
I see where you're going.
My biggest question mark is just how emotional is this team going to be? Yeah. Fnatic was one of the most emotional teams we had. When it's going bad, it's going horrible. When it's going good, it's going great. And that's the thing. How's that going to stay throughout the year?
I mean, they have Grabs now as well. I wanted to pull up kind of Grabs' achievements throughout his time, because obviously we identify Grabs a lot with the G2 Wonder years, I'm going to call it. But when it comes to Grabs, I feel like he'll really want to prove something now that he you know, is at the helm of a team that could actually contest them.
Yeah, I mean, he was at BDS, and at that, you can see it yourself.
Really bad,
it was crap. Like, it didn't go well, and there is always the conversation that you were a good coach because you had a good team, right?
Yeah.
That is a statement that can be made, but this is his team to prove everyone wrong. I'm not saying that Fnatic isn't a great team because I genuinely think they are, but here is a players that's shown that they have weaknesses that need to be better to beat G2. You now have the chance to try and edge out what you can do as a coach.
I think it's very interesting. I think this roster is very similar to the G2 roster in the sense that you have these both accomplished players and players that seem quite hungry that actually can be the best in the league. I think when you had that BDS roster, nobody was expecting them to be top one. But this Fnatic roster, there's real hopes that they can be the best in the league.
Nobody was expecting them to be top one, but look at how BDS did in the years thereafter. Also, if you look at it purely objectively, you wouldn't say that this is a team that would get into top two.
But what I would preface the argument with is that as a coach, I think that you do two different jobs if you have players that know how to win versus players that need to learn how to win. I think when you have a rookie new lineup like the BDS was, and when you're a bad team, you need to inspire confidence in them and teach them how do you actually win in League of Legends. If these Fnatic players need to be taught how to win, I don't know what they've been doing their whole career.
I guess
all he should need to do is tell them how to win together.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, because that's what the problem was often, right? And also, to win, they have all the tools to win, but still they kind of couldn't make the IKEA table for some reason. I think that might be a very difficult conundrum to fix, and we hope it's going well, of course. I'd like to pull the graphic up again, because we talk about BDS, and BDS is so interesting. They kind of held the dominoes for a lot of the off-season, because I believe 9 of their players across their LEC roster and their Academy roster, their contract was basically up or about to expire, so they had to make a lot of choices. And what do you think about what they ended up at in return? Because a lot of BDS players, of course, the EMEA Masters champions are everywhere, and they ended up with this roster where they have, of course, Irrelevant coming from SK as well, and then 113 who is back, and Paris, who was very sought after, we hear, right?
I played against Paris in the Masters. He's so good. He's really, really good. Like, just the pressure he has, the engages he has, he's smart about the game. I think this roster will be really good. For me, the biggest question mark is 113. He's, for me, a similar player to Malrang. He's incredibly crazy, and he will go for any sort of play. And I want to see how is he able to manage that in competitive, because he's the type of player that he can easily go 10-0, but he can also easily go 0-10.
Yeah, but I think 113 is also the guy where most people, they don't watch ERLs, that's fact. They haven't seen him since his LEC days. And they might have a bit of a bad taste still in their mouth for back then. He was on Astralis, wasn't a very successful team back then. From what I watched, when I watched him on KC now instead, it felt like he had got a lot more calculated in the way that he was playing. And what I mean by that is, at least when I saw the first 3 clears, he had a very good idea. If my bot lane had pride here, either we know we play for a dive, or I can utilize those resources for an invade and get a camp advantage, or whatever it was. The flip still exists, don't get me wrong. He's still a crazy guy, right? Yeah. But it just felt like there came a bit more method to the madness, I suppose. But I
mean, it's also important to remember that he was, I think, like 18 when he joined LEC. He was very, very young. And when you also mature as a player, it's very common that you start to get a little bit more wise about the game. You kind of understand that you don't need to play so aggressive all the time to generate the lead. And sometimes, like, just doing nothing is the right play. And especially in this meta, where it's kind of like full clear jungle meta, sometimes it's hard to mess that up.
Yeah, it's true. I think sometimes I worry about, sometimes people get a moniker that follows them. Like, people will say, this guy's a bad laner, or he was this when he was in this team, and they can never shake it. And I think it's really cool that he gets a new chance, because we remember him as like the emote spammer, like FLICKR,
I mean, he's still going to spam emotes,
which
so
is
if you
fine.
don't like that, you can hate him.
It's cool that he gets another chance. I think there's a couple of examples here. FLICKR is a great example as well. But I want to talk about KC a little bit, because for me, some of the coolest news of the offseason is, although we knew it was coming, is KC, and on the other end, Koi with Jojo Pion playing in the mid lane there. But to talk about KC, I've got a quote also that I got from one of the other coaches. And they said, well, yeah, Kalist, it's all good and well. He's great. The hype is great. But Vladdy is insane as well. And that's the hope, right, for this roster.
Yeah, I mean, Vladdy kind of with Closer back then last year really saved this roster. I think Vladdy was for sure one of the best prospects that was brought into the league last year as well. And he showed great potential. He's going to continue to do so. I have no doubt about that. I am more worried about the expectation that's been put on Kalist, because this guy has been talked about as the second coming of Christ. He's now coming into the league with like the shoes he's gonna have to fill here is crazy, right? I would say the hype is just as much as when Caps joined, but Caps joined the Fnatic roster. Kalis is now joining a KC roster who's been struggling. You don't have the same tools around you. People are looking at you to be the solution, to be the guy who's gonna fix everything.
But I'm looking at the tools, and the thing is, I thought this last year already, I thought this roster has to actually can do better than what they shown or how the results show, for sure. And now I still think that because Kana, Yike,
I mean,
Vladdy, who's on an upward trajectory,
they can
good.
make Worlds. I think this roster has the potential for Worlds.
I think the roster should be good, but at the same time, I agree with you a lot that the Kalista expectations are unrealistic and impossible to meet. Like, let's just picture he picks Ashe, for example, and enemy lane swaps. Okay, so now we don't get to see how he does in laning. Okay, that should be a huge strength of his. I've played against him. He has an incredibly good laning phase and he pressures really well. Now they swap, so they removed half of that. Okay, and let's say you get the team fights. Okay, his mid lane or his jungler is playing a bad game, and now team fights are suddenly hard to play.
Yeah.
What do? Suddenly we didn't get to see any of Kalist, and then people think, oh, he's bad. But the truth of the matter is, ADC right now is not the strongest role. It's not that impactful. So it's going to be really hard for me to imagine that he's just going to come in and 1v9 games. It can't do what a mid laner does. It can't do what a jungler does. It is what it is.
Fair. It's like we're going to have to see in the context of how this KC likes to play if we're getting enough from him, right? But it's super exciting. We only have 30 seconds left. We didn't even talk about G2. Wait, what?
We didn't talk about G2?
We didn't even talk about G2. Things have changed. Everyone at home.
Skumon is really good. I played against him as well.
They're really good, yeah? You played in solo queue against some of them, right?
Yeah, I played against him today, and he completely destroyed me. Yeah.
Yeah, he destroyed you?
Yeah, completely. On Jarvan.
All right. Well, that's why you're here, and he's on the roster.
Well, he destroyed Caps. Caps was my jungler, so it wasn't me who got
today, though. We've got Team Heretics versus Rogue, and Lore is now standing by in the Marriott Bonvoy checkpoint in our pre-game check-in.
Thank you so much, Shox, and welcome to the very first interview of this 2025 LEC season with FLICKR. You know him. How are you doing?
Nice. Really happy to be back here.
Yeah, really nice to have you here.
It was a long break, but happy that I'm here.
Always feels a bit too long. Really, really happy to kick things off with you guys. A lot of changes within Team Heretics.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about this roster. 3 words, to define the team you have right now.
I mean, my 3 words would be, first of all, I would say fun.
Okay.
Because, it's like very chill, like group of guys. Yeah. The second word would be, I think, you can call it tryhard, you can call it ambition, but like, we have a lot of like, we are willing to, get good and maybe win some trophies, who knows? But we definitely put like the work and the grinding. And then the third word I would say cooking.
Cooking?
Yeah, I would say cooking, because these guys, they're a bit crazy. And I'm a bit known for like, liking exotic picks sometimes. Yeah. And these guys, for sure, they really like a lot of exotic things. So yeah, I would say cooking would be my third word.
All right. Well, that's going to be exciting then. I'm sorry you have to play with 3 French players.
It's fine. It's completely fine.
Is it fine? Yeah.
It's fine.
Are they being nice to you?
Yeah, they're being nice.
All right. Perfect. Yeah. I know you messed up crepes, but we
oh my
will
God,
talk about this another time.
I really gripped them. I think my coach got food poisoning actually, but
I've heard about this thing. We'll talk about this in another interview. Yeah. It's not easy starting the year with 3 rookies, 3 fresh rookies. I know you were in their shoes in 2022 when you started as well. How has it been working with them and seeing them develop so far? Are you sharing some words of wisdom as the veteran of this team, actually?
Yeah, at the beginning, right, it's kind of, I would say it's like the same for every team in terms of like, it's like kind of like what people call the honeymoon phase. Yeah. So it's like really hard that like some issues are like brought up. It's hard as well to like see or like identify common issues because you are not like spending a lot of time with them. But so far, or like the discussions we're having related to the game and like maybe some topics outside the game, they're really easy to handle because they for sure like care so much about the game and it's kind of like our life. So and they don't really have like that experience. Because like for example, I've been teams where like there was like more experienced players, and for sure you can tell like sometimes people are like mad, they can get upset because it's just basically they just have doing the same for like so many years. So I respect it, you know, sometimes. From time to time, it's not bad to, you know, maybe the emotions control you a bit. But, I mean, with this team, it's just really chill. Me and Shaw are kind of like the veterans. So we're kind of like basically just guiding them through a bit, you know, these first days of LEC and the first scrims and what's like the life in Berlin kind of. So
that's amazing to hear, and looking forward to seeing this cooking on the Rift later today.
Yeah, maybe today we're cooking already.
Maybe today. Well, let's look forward to it. Thank you so much for the interview.
So
Best of luck in your first game. And time for us to kick off the winter split of the 2025 LEC season. Let's get to it.
It'll be fun to see Mihi on Fnatic. Last time I was on Fnatic, we won 2 splits and won World Finals. I would like to see if he can do the same.
All right.
This is not the first time that people start doubting me or my teams. Every time I will join a team, no matter which one, I can make it like be a really good team.
The Quadra! Cassante, baby! Get the pasta ready! He's still in the game! Penta!
I know there is a lot of hype around me, but I don't feel any pressure. I really want to be the best AD in Europe.
I kind of always hated the narrative of me getting carried by Captain Broken Blade, so this year I have the chance to prove it wrong.
I hope he ganks me a lot, so I can collect some free kills.
And they're all gonna try to kill me, right? So it's gonna be pretty fun, and I'm gonna try my hardest to shit on all of them.
The goal with Heretics is for sure to win minimum 1 LEC split and 100% make it to Worlds.
G2 in a 4v4 young flashes away from Humanoid, and Humanoid will not live to see another day!
Many more titles I want to win. And the level I want to reach is also far from what I'm at.
BLG knocking down the last of the LEC!
But then after 2 years of not really making it out, something had to change.
I think this roster has potential to break the previous iterations of G2.
The last time Fnatic won a final, I was involved in one way or another.
I would like to win without G2.
Everyone has the same chance to lift the trophy. It's just how good the teams use it. We are usually the ones using the chance the best.
It's all over for Fnatic!
I am tired of losing to them. It's been too long, and this year we are for sure taking them down.